This year, the report includes one more aspect of national security, public health. Here is my interview with the Deputy Director of INSS, Brigadier General Itai Brun. Itai Brun, thank you very much for joining me. So you've published this week your yearly assessment for 2021. Let's talk about the headlines. What do you foresee for the upcoming year?
Well, the title of the annual assessment is the year of the vaccine, internal and external threat to our national security. And in this annual assessment specifically, we adapt a much broader perspective about national security that includes not only the traditional external military defense threat, but also the internal threats to national security. Generally speaking, looking at 2020, Israel enjoyed a quiet year, mainly because all the key players in the region were dealing with their own domestic problems. So it was a quiet year. Israel operated in Syria, in other places, against current and future threats, and took advantage of this quiet year and probably the last year of the Trump administration for this normalization agreement with the UAE, Bahrain, Sudan, Morocco.
Okay, and looking forward, let's stick to the last point that you've mentioned. Do you see this agreement path broadening up in 2021?
Yes, I think yes. First of all, it's another year of uncertainty, but this year it's for real, because we don't know what will be the future of COVID-19. The Biden administration will be still probably dealing with its vision toward the world and the region. But speaking about the regional system, and these agreements are part of what we describe as the struggle over the shape, over the image, over the soul of the Middle East. And this struggle is being conducted in two realms, according to our description. The first realm is on the regional order between competing camps, the Iran-led camp, the Turkey-led camp, the jihadists, and also the moderate pragmatic camp. I think that what happened in 2020 is that Israel became much more involved in the regional system, and in that sense, this is the way to explain the agreements with the Sunni moderate states. I believe that this normalization trend can be increased, but of course it is highly connected with the position of the states, and I think it's part of the uncertainty of 2021.
Looking at those two main threats, Iran and the Northern Front, how do you foresee it? How do you see 2021?
Yes, for the North, and for Iran, by the way, I think that all the key players, Iran, Bashar of Syria, Hezbollah, Hamas, and this Palestinian Islamic Jihad, all the key players do not want to go into large-scale escalation. What we are pointing is that there might be a dynamic of escalation because of this dynamic of action and reaction, attack and retaliation. So in that sense, I think, speaking about the North, I think that all the players are aware of this danger of dynamic of escalation, but they believe that they can handle it. Okay, so there will be 1, 2, 3 days of escalation, and then it will shut down. We think that it might turn into a large-scale escalation. If Hezbollah, for example, would succeed in killing either Israeli soldier or Israeli citizen in its attack on September the 1st, 2019, or this year when they were trying to do something alongside the Israeli-Lebanese border, if there will be an escalation, we're describing two scenarios. First is the third Lebanon war, a confrontation with Hezbollah, but that will be limited like the first and the second Lebanon war to Lebanon and Israel. And the second scenario, we title it the First War of the North, something like that. And this includes Lebanon, but also maybe Syria or Shia militias that are operating from Syria or from Iraq, and maybe even from other places. So this is about the North.
One more thing you point about the North is the precision project of Hezbollah. You see it as maybe the major conventional threat to Israel. Explain.
This is something that can dramatically change the battlefield. The ability to attack Israel's centers of gravity, the electric system, the gas, the air bases. So this is a real change. If Hezbollah will be able to attack not only the civilian population, but also the weak points, the vulnerabilities of Israel. Israel is a small state with vulnerabilities. This is a huge change. We think it might even reflect a change in the doctrine, because the doctrine was a doctrine that, generally speaking, was based on attrition, something like winning without losing. But the precision munition, the precision project, might also change the doctrine from this attrition doctrine into something like a strike, hurting Israel, forcing it to stop fighting because of its vulnerability.
And how far should Israel go in order to prevent that? Because this project is in the process. It is not done yet. I mean, it's in the process. Israel has done a few things, published and disclosed a few sites, and according to foreign sources, attacked in Beirut a year and a half ago. What should Israel do in order to prevent that?
First, we believe that Israel should keep on dealing with it in its so-called campaign between the wars, attacking the transfer of armament, specifically the precision elements, the precision component from Iran to Lebanon for Hezbollah, and maybe also attacking targets in Lebanon that are connected with this precision project. The problem is that if Israel attack targets in Lebanon, this might bring this large-scale escalation that no one wants. So our recommendation is to try to identify the time in which it will be necessary to attack this disposition in Lebanon, with the possibility that it will turn to a large-scale escalation. The time will probably be the outcome of a specific context, either something between us and Hezbollah or the number of missiles.
But what you say, Itai, is that Israel has not gone into a war that it has started. It's against Israel's doctrine for many years. I mean, since 1967, we were forced, in large, to go to wars, maybe not very smartly by us, by others, but what you're saying is Israel, in a way, should be prepared to start a war on that issue, because otherwise it won't be able to handle the war if it doesn't do it in time.
Yes, I think you're right. This issue of preemptive attack or preemptive war is coming back to the table, and the context is this precision project. The time, the scale should be discussed in this discussion concerning the Israeli strategy, but it's back on the table.
And one other place where it's back on the table is Iran, because we've seen Iran this week going higher to enrich uranium to 20%, something that they were able to do but didn't do in the past year and a half since the Americans left the JCPOA. And Israel allegedly should go back, and you write it as well, Israel should keep the option, the military option, on the table.
Should maintain the option. Yes, look, Iran faced a series of blows this year. It started with the killing of Soleimani, the commander of the Quds Force, the architect of the Iranian regional activity and policy, and it ended with the killing of Mohsen Fakhrizadeh, who was in charge of the weapon group within the nuclear program. I think that the main issue for Iran is removing the sanctions. So I think that by increasing the enrichment level to 20%, no doubt that Iran is shortening the time if it will want to run for a bomb.
But more than that, Itai, what Iran is doing is telling the world, hold us.
Yes, this is the issue. This is exactly the issue. I think it's a tool within this campaign to bring the world back to JCPOA, to the agreement from 2015. It is highly dependent on the American policy, the American new policy by the Biden administration. But I think that Iran is signaling, look, we need the sanction to be lifted. A new agreement or a renew agreement is needed. Let's negotiate on a new agreement.
So what are they doing? They're piling assets to give them up within the new negotiations? That's what they're doing?
I think they are going in two ways. First, yes, assembling the assets for the negotiation, but they're also making it easier for them to what is called run for a bomb. Because the breakthrough. The technological effort, the technological challenge to go from their 4.5% level to 20%, this is something that is very difficult. It is easier to go from 20% to 90% that is needed for military capability, military nuclear capability.
And as of your knowledge and experience, being a very, very good intelligence officer, will Israel and the world know exactly the point when it happens? If it happens, them going from 20 to 90 and shortening dramatically the time to the bomb?
Well, that's the $64 million question. I think that, generally speaking, yes. It is highly dependent with the way Iran will choose to go. But generally speaking, I think that the world have good intelligence. Iran is currently running this issue within places, facilities that are inspected by the International Atomic Agency. So in the current position, yes. If Iran is going on the side to a covered program, this will be much more difficult. I don't think this is the current situation.
Itai Brun, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.